The purpose of this webinar is to give the idea of the US market to the Pakistani companies, especially dealing in the textiles and apparel sector, as we are having the Texpo exhibition. So to give you the opening remarks, I would like to introduce, first of all, Mr. Abdul Jabbar Memon, who is the Consul General of Pakistan here in the Los Angeles. He is the most senior and seasoned diplomat of Pakistan and serving the Pakistan.
I think you got muted.
Now you can hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
So I would like to introduce Mr. Abdul Jabbar Memon, the Consul General of Pakistan, to give the opening remarks in this webinar, sir. Jabbar, sir.
Thank you very much, Atif. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and assalamu alaikum. Good evening in Pakistan. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who's here today and has virtually logged in to the webinar from different time zones. It's highly appreciated. We are holding this webinar in collaboration with Trade Development Authority of Pakistan to explore and how to navigate the US market during this pandemic for increasing the exports of textiles and apparel from Pakistan to the USA. I'm deeply honored and grateful to our respectable panelists, especially from the USA, who have taken time out in the morning to join us for this webinar. And I'm sure their experiences and insights, which they will share shortly with the Pakistani audience, will be very useful for them. Unfortunately, 2020 has proved to be the most challenging year on record for global trade and economy in a century. The COVID-19 pandemic has destroyed hopes for a strong global upturn. Pakistan is also among those countries which has been severely impacted by this pandemic and is continuously struggling to neutralize its impacts on trade. As you all know, the textile has always been one of the most important industries for Pakistan, and United States plays a vital role since it's the major export market for Pakistani textile products. According to the trade data of US government in 2019, the US imported goods worth US $3.9 billion from Pakistan, and US exports to Pakistan stood to US $2.6 billion. The value-added sector of textile constitutes 73% of total exports of Pakistan to the USA. It's heartening to mention here that Pakistan is the third largest exporter of home textiles in the United States. Although we have a strong presence in the US for this industry, but we have to keep in mind that we live in a different time, and now especially due to COVID-19 pandemic, and we keep seeing shifts in trends, taste and purchasing behavior of the public. E-commerce is one example where we keep seeing massive growth in changing the way the public deals with their buying habits. Hence, we need to ahead of the curve and consider all factors to keep up with ongoing changes and shifts for the betterment of Pakistan's economy and to successfully compete with our competitors as we have done so far. I would also like to take this opportunity to shine some positive light on Pakistan's first ever virtual Texpo 2021. I believe this is a great achievement for the country, as even during the pandemic, Pakistan has shown its resilience, that it has the ability to control and tackle the issues facing the economy due to lockdown, and exports from Pakistan has been instrumental in keeping the positive momentum going. I'm confident that my trade investment officers have done proactive marketing for this exhibition, and they are able to get many interested US buyers, including our Pakistani American community, for their participation in this virtual exhibition and arranging B2B meetings to make this event truly successful. Once again, I appreciate everyone who's here for this webinar, and I do believe that this will provide important insights and highlight the factors we need to focus on. I'm sure that our respectable panelists today will enlighten us about supply chain, trends, legal matters, and e-commerce in the US for this industry. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Krieger. He's the president of the Krieger Worldwide company. Mr. Robert is responsible for leading 4 different companies in 3 countries, and Robert has helped his company to gain its reputation as one of the leading provider of global logistics. Mr. Robert has been actively involved in teaching classes and starting import-export business and taught international freight management at University of California in Los Angeles, and he has taught customs brokerage at California State Universities. Mr. Robert has given seminars on the apparel industry in Australia, China, Hong Kong, and South Africa, as well as in the USA. And he's a great friend of Pakistan. And I would like to request Mr. Krieger, sir, to please enlighten the Pakistani audience with your experience. So thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Atif, and salam alaikum to our friends in Pakistan. And I'd like to thank the Consul General Abdul Jabbar Maiman for putting this conference on. It's a great thing. Communication is always good, and the way that we solve problems is we communicate. And there's a lot of problems in the supply chain. Indeed, there's a Chinese proverb that I've been using a lot lately, and the Chinese proverb said, "These are interesting times we live in." And indeed, these are challenging times in the supply chain. In some cases, we've never had these types of problems at all. In other cases, the only times we've had these types of problems have been when there's been lockouts and strikes, particularly along the US West Coast. This seems to be a situation which is even worse because there's almost gridlock. So in Pakistan, we know that it's hard to find containers and equipment. It's also hard to find space on vessels going to the US. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, about some of the solutions that I think are good. So the general supply chain, as far as countries go, Pakistan, from what I understand, is in a lot better shape than many other countries, okay? China, particularly in the US. Indeed, yesterday, I heard for the first time that one company paid $12,000 to ship a container from Vietnam to the United States, which is just unbelievable, given that the rates were about 1/6 of that a year ago. So the summarization of the supply chain, a summarization is that the supply chain is in crisis. Rates are, as I said, out the roof, and the carriers are difficult to deal with, but not impossible. Okay, so but on top of the increasing rates, the quality of the services have just declined tremendously. Even getting somebody from a steamship line on the phone or an email to answer a question is a problem, and we need that to happen. So the current situation on the US West Coast is probably the worst in the entire country. As of last Friday, I saw photos of 38 container vessels waiting to dock in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. 38 container vessels. These are outside the port, okay? Many of these container ships hold 15,000 20-foot containers or 7,500 40-foot containers. Imagine the amount of merchandise on one container ship. And in the Los Angeles Long Beach port, delays are averaging almost 2 weeks. So it takes about a week for a ship to berth and about a week for it to get unloaded. Now, things can go faster and will go faster, and in some cases things will go slower. And sometimes things go slower, complicated by the miscommunication from the steamship lines. But there is a chassis shortage in the ports of Los Angeles. There's no space to unload the ships in some cases. When there is space to unload the ships, there's labor shortages, and that's directly linked to COVID-19. I'm afraid there's a substantial number of longshoremen that have tested positive for COVID, and indeed the union is demanding that they get priorities for getting shots. Once the cargo is cleared customs and available, there's an appointment system in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which worked pretty good in the past, even during congested times. Now they've totally failed, and the ports are trying to figure out alternative solutions. So on top of that, when the cargo is available, sometimes 2 or 3 days after a vessel arrives, if you can't pick it up, somebody has to pay what they call demurrage charges. So if it's not picked up within a certain number of days at the ports of Los Angeles or Long Beach, demurrage charges are incurred. And indeed, the Port of Los Angeles is paying a lot of those demurrage charges that it's collecting to the city of Los Angeles, which is very broke. So efforts that we've made to fix the supply chain in Los Angeles, particularly the Port of Los Angeles, have been met with mostly failure. Long Beach is a little bit better, but it's hard to select a vessel that goes to Long Beach instead of Los Angeles because of the complications in the steamship industry. Basically, in the last decade or so, the steamship lines have consolidated, one buying another, and now there's 3 large alliances which cover the 10 main steamship companies that service international ports from the United States. So these companies have become difficult to deal with, monopolistic in practices. There's government investigations of the steamship industries occurring in the United States, in China, Korea, and the European Union, but I don't look at those investigations as fixing any of the supply chains. Indeed, one very sensitive topic to the United States government is export cargo from the United States. The United States, as you know, is a big producer of agricultural products, and I'm sure Pakistan imports a fair amount of agricultural products from the United States. We handle a lot of almond exports to the Indian subcontinent, and getting container space is difficult. So it's reached now the level where it's made the mainstream media and the US Congress. I expect to be invited on to a few phone calls with some congressmen, either in my district or congressmen that I know, to try to get congressional pressure on the steamship lines to help alleviate some of these problems and fix the supply chain. So once the container is picked up out of the Port of Los Angeles, whatever the commodity is, in this case apparel, it's delivered to either a distribution center that a US company owns or a third-party logistics company. And so unloading these containers can be a challenge because some of the warehouses have their own issues with finding labor and getting them done. But even assuming you can unload it quickly and then return the container, you have to make an appointment to return the container. If they don't accept your container appointment, then you have something called detention, which is another cost of that you have to incur. Somebody has to incur it in order to return that container. It's pretty absurd. So I was interviewed by the California Apparel News yesterday, and we talked about the supply chain issues. And my only suggestion at this point is, if you can, avoid the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach with your apparel or any shipments. That's a good thing. The California Apparel News asked me to predict how long the congestion will last. Well, not having a crystal ball, and I don't have a clue, but I believe that this problem may be linked to the opening of travel in the United States and restaurants in the US. It seems as if people who have money allocated for travel or entertainment are now buying things. The things seem to be mostly from China and Vietnam, there seems to be the apparel industry in the US is not strong at this point, except probably in basics. And there's only a few retailers that are doing really well that sell apparel. So I say in the apparel business in the US, there are mainly two types of companies: those that are selling clothing and those that aren't selling much clothing. I mean, the supply chain is huge. As the Consul General suggested earlier, there is a lot of e-commerce, okay? But that e-commerce doesn't necessarily go from a factory in Pakistan to a US consumer, although there is quite a bit of e-commerce going from China and Vietnam directly to consumer through entrepreneurial companies. And in some cases, those companies have established warehouses in the outside of the United States to avoid paying duties. So that's a complicated thing. So when you're selling to certain companies, you have to be careful. You have to do due diligence, choose the right customers, right agents, 3PLs, forwarders, and customs brokers. Now, I just wanted to go over one other thing before I conclude. Just for edification, service from Pakistan to the U.S. There's really U.S. West Coast, East Coast, and Gulf Coast, but I'm going to focus on the West Coast and on the East Coast. So currently, published schedules are 27-day transit direct service from Pakistan into the ports of New York, New Jersey. There's a number of carriers that offer that service. Whereas to the West Coast, we're looking at 38 days, 42 days, 44 days. That's just to get to the breakwater, okay? And then it sits. My good friend Alex could comment about his cargo and what's been happening with his cargo. But I think a way to be successful here in the supply chain is to establish a pipeline. And what do I mean by a pipeline? It's just simple, okay? If you have a flow of shipments steady, the steamship lines recognize you, the forwarders recognize you, in some cases the terminals recognize you, the docks recognize you, the truckers recognize you, and it's kind of like mass producing something versus making something one-off. So establishing a pipeline to wherever you choose to distribute your merchandise is a good idea. But my best guess at this point is that whatever pipeline that there is or was established to Los Angeles will be broken probably until sometime around the late spring or early summer at the best. So consult with your freight forwarders and consult with your clients about the needs. And then doing this and having good agents and good partners, you'll be successful in your business. And thank you very much. And I'll take questions whenever T feels that I should take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Ms. Sarah Meber. She's the owner and CFO of Vocal Girls, a woman entrepreneur. And she got her business degree 23 years ago and went back to get her master's in speech pathology. She juggles her business, speech therapy, and 5 children. And I'm extremely thankful to Ms. Sarah, who is on holidays, but she was wonderful in accepting our invitation to speak and share her experiences in the clothing business in the USA. Madam Sarah, please kindly, floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry about the background noise. I am currently in Miami Beach on winter break with my kids, trying to multitask, wear many hats. This was very interesting and informative. Robert, thank you for sharing. I actually really learned a lot from listening to you. And I found myself commiserating with many of your concerns and things that you were dealing with currently. So just to give a little background, my sisters and I started a modest clothing company about 5 years ago. And we do our production through a contractor in Los Angeles. And we buy fabrics that are imported, China, from Pakistan. And We keep it pretty simple. So we deal directly with the contractor and we do sampling and production all within the United States. We have imported in the past from India and fully constructed garments, not fabric, and as well as from China. We did very little, I would say, from China. But when COVID hit, we found ourselves at a loss of what to do with production because the fabric vendors were closed and the contractors were not available, and it definitely led us with some difficulties that we needed to kind of troubleshoot and pivot, find another way to continue to produce our items so that we could make them available. We are an e-commerce business, and we have a very small supply chain. So we basically go straight to our contractor or the factory, and then we sell it on our website, and the customer buys directly from us. We have sold a little bit in Amazon in the past, but primarily we have found that our website is the best source because we can give the customer service that the customer really needs and wants and answer their questions. It's just a little bit more of an intimate relationship and connection, which we found to be very effective. I would also say that we found ourselves looking for, production since it was not available. And actually, because we are an e-commerce business, our sales have increased tremendously over the pandemic as most people are home and they're looking for things online. And we provided a service that was very necessary when all of the malls and stores were not available to them. We also offer a lot of loungewear, and those are things, items that the consumer has been using a lot over the past year. So what we did is we actually had to find factories in overseas. This is all pretty new to us because in the past we had gone to China and we went to the fairs and we found factories, and we didn't have really strong relationships with those factories. So we researched, we found factories, we did a lot of sampling back and forth, and we began production, which led us to another challenge, and that was importing. So the taxes and the duties are exorbitant. And I would say in the last 6 months, I've seen a 50% increase in what we're paying to import items, specifically from China. So much so that we're paying about $6 on top of each item for shipping and duties, which is really very, very, very unaffordable for us as a small business. And so we did, I would say, I think we brought in about 4 containers. And now we find ourselves, as things are starting to open and markets are starting to open, bringing more of our production back to the United States. Because number one, it is definitely more cost effective getting rid of the shipping and the duties and the taxes and not having to wait for the port and the unloading and all that stuff. Also, I would say that the markets in LA are opening and production is more available. And that's sort of been our experience thus far. And thank you for having me on. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Shana. Thank you very much for your time and for your wonderful insights. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Sikandar Rashid, also known as Mr. Alex Rashid. He's the president of the Pacific Textile and Sourcing, and his company is involved in the imports and wholesaling of knitwear apparel since 2002 in Los Angeles. They sell primarily to major retailers and national brands in USA and specialize in building supply chains for core programs from raw materials to finished goods inventory in the US. They also involve in forecasting, complete supply chain visibility, warehousing, EDI capability, and picking direct to store for weekly shipments. Thank you, Mr. Alex. Kindly, sir, floor is yours. As kindly do enlighten us about your experiences, sir. Thank you. Unmute yourself, sir, also.
Thank you, Atif. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone. I want to thank Councillor General Abdul Jabbar Maiman and Commercial Councillor Mr. Atif Aziz for the privilege to attend and speak at the Pakistan Texpo and in this webinar. We are importers of basic knitwear apparel, primarily knitwear, from Pakistan and Jordan and at times Egypt. I sort of wanted to talk about Pakistani companies, mid to larger companies, having a presence in Europe and the United States. I know that a lot of the larger companies already do have that presence, but I think that middle-sized companies should also look into doing so, that can be done at three different levels. First can be just setting up a U.S. company and having a customs brokerage partner like Krieger Worldwide, Mr. Robert Krieger, and then just importing and landing the goods and giving that to the customer. I think you open up a whole different segment of U.S. importers when you, excuse me, are able to land the goods. And I think that the cost of doing that relatively is not much. I mean, the benefits outweigh the cost in a big way. And a second tier would be to have set up a company, have an office, and have people, independent or dedicated employees, representing the company and representing the product and having samples on hand and speaking to smaller and mid-tier customers here. Somebody like Ms. Frances Harder, who's already doing that for companies in Egypt, and I believe is part of this webinar. So that would be a second tier. And, for ones that are able to do so, a third, a larger way of doing this would be to come in and invest in infrastructure, primarily warehousing. I think a warehouse office is very, very important if you want to grow your business in the United States. On that note, I know that Pakistani banks who have branches in the United States are very eager to provide loans at very good terms, especially to customers that they know or have a relationship with already in Pakistan. So that is for something for Pakistani experts to look into. But I think that just by the nature of the world events and all that, there has always been, not always, but in recent years has been a hesitation sometimes on part of US customers to go and explore the market in Pakistan. I mean, they will always, on an invitation from a factory that they're working with or hoping to work with, they will always be very open to visiting Pakistan for that. But generally, when I've, the shows that we have in Pakistan, those could stand to have a larger presence of the actual importing customer from the United States. So in lieu of that, this strategy of having a presence in the United States is, I think, would pay dividends. I think it's the next step for a country like Pakistan. And also the opportunity exists today for that due to recent complications in relations between China and the West, primarily the United States and Europe as well. And that's what Sarah alluded to earlier. There are a lot of US customers that are looking for diversification in their supply chain. And Pakistan is a natural ally there. Pakistan is the 4th largest producer of cotton in the world. We have very, very good cotton, very good hand feel. Pakistan's also the largest yarn surplus country in the world, which means that the growth in the apparel sector is only natural. And so in these times, I think that that opportunity for the country is just wide open. And any help I can ever provide as far as advice, I think there's some I'd be happy to, and I think there are some very, very accomplished people on this panel today that I think could be and should be used as a resource by Pakistani companies. Again, thank you, Atif, and thank you, Consul General Mayman, for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Sikandar Saab. Thank you very much for your wonderful insight. Jabbar, sir, you wanted to say something, sir? So unmute.
Atif, I would have really loved to continue until the end of webinar, but I have a medical appointment at 9 o'clock in Angel's Clinic. So I would like to go, and thank you very much once again. And Atif, very well done. And I'm once again very grateful to all my respectable panelists for joining us early in the morning today. Thank you very much. Continue with your proceedings. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Jabbar, sir. Now it's my honor to invite Madam Colleen Winter. Madam Colleen Winter is an American businesswoman and a creative. And she founded Lulu's, a global fashion brand with annual net sales in the hundreds of millions. She presided as Chief Executive Officer of Lulu's from 1996 till 2020. And during her tenure, she led the transformation of Lulu's from a small vintage shop to a global fashion brand by leading design, marketing strategy, and e-commerce innovation. Madam Colleen continues to be extremely passionate about creating great quality product paired with best-in-class customer experience. She's an expert in brand identity, digital marketing, and growth strategy, and I'm sure she will bring a lot of value to this webinar. Madam Colleen, floor is yours, madam. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So my name is Colleen. I've actually really enjoyed the virtual expo. I think you've done a great job. I've enjoyed exploring it. I've already had people reach out to me. So great job all around there. I think today I was planning on taking time to give you a little background on Lulu's. And then also I think it's important from retailers' perspective on what we like when we are starting to work with a vendor and what we expect out of our vendor partnerships. I'm really excited about Pakistan. I do think it's a great country, and especially as everybody is trying to kind of leave China in such a way. I know for Lulu's, we were, extremely dependent on China, and most of our goods still come from China. So as Sarah mentioned, we're moving a lot of things to the United States, but we're also moving a lot of things to other countries and new countries as well. I founded Lulu's 25 years ago. We're a global fashion brand. We sell a curated collection of clothing, of shoes, and accessories. And like was mentioned in my bio, Lulu's started as a vintage shop, in 1996. And I've led the transformation from, selling used clothes to what Lulu's is today. And today we consider ourselves a one-stop shop for on-trend pieces with affordable price points. And that's something that we strive for. Our demographic is definitely the millennial and the Gen Z woman. Our customer is 27. She's a college graduate. She's affluent. She's very comfortable with online shopping, which is great for us. It's very important for her to look good both day and night. She's very social media savvy, and many of her purchases really are from digitally native brands. And a lot of times, I mean, this happens to me as well. You just stumble across a new brand and the next thing you know, you're buying something. So I feel like today's retail landscape has become more and more crowded. It's a very competitive landscape, and every day we work hard at Lulu's to differentiate ourselves as a brand and to really stand out in the marketplace. And we've done this by really having a unique sense of style. We really have a strong point of view with everything that we sell. You know, our designs are modern, they're feminine, they're chic, they're sophisticated. And we really like to delight our first-time customers and repeat customers with better than expected quality of our items. And the quality really comes from our vendors. And so we really choose vendors that we know have very high quality standards. This is extremely important to us. We love to invest in like superior sewing, construction, and high-end finishes wherever we can. Fit is extremely important to us and to our customers as well. So in order to stand out in a very crowded retail landscape, you know, we have taken, you know, great product and paired it with best-in-class customer experience. So we give our customers very customer-centric policies like free shipping, free returns. We work really hard to provide, you know, unparalleled customer service. Our customers have access to stylists, fit experts. You know, we have a bridal concierge team. We sell a lot of wedding dresses and bridesmaids dresses, and we will hold your hand and help you really find a dress that's perfect for you and for your bridesmaids. We ship everything out in chic packaging and shipping materials. And really what I'm trying to convey here is it's really been our mission to give our customers a sense of affordable luxury. So we like to pay attention to all of the details so we can make, you know, our customers feel special with every purchase. And to do all of this, we have very high expectations from our vendor base. And this is something that's really important to us, really strong vendor relations. We've been profitable since year one. We've created a really lean business model. And this business model has been able to scale as the business has scaled. And we've been able to optimize it for e-commerce because we are, you know, purely online. We are a digitally native company. We're also very data driven. We don't dictate to our customers what they should buy and where. We actually listen to them. So we have a demand-driven buying model, and we put out a series of tests. About 30 to 40 new items go online every single day. And our goal with these initial tests is a hope of a very large reorder. And because we're testing all the products, this has really helped us minimize fashion risk, trend risk, and inventory risk. And we look for partners that are willing to work with us on initial order minimums, because sometimes, you know, our initial order quantities can be low, but you know, we have a ton of data on a SKU after we complete a test. So our reorders can be very large, really based on sales volume and the feedback that we get from our customers. Once a test is complete, we actually know the sales volume of a particular SKU by day and by month. And that gives us an advantage in ordering because we can make a very calculated purchase. We know how many we're going to sell by size and by day and by month. We also pay very particular importance to our return rates. Returns are very costly for retailers, as I'm sure you know, and especially people like us that give free return shipping. So we want to minimize returns wherever we can. And even though sales of a particular SKU might be high on that test, we never will reorder anything with a high return rate. So perfecting fit in the sampling process can greatly reduce return rates. And we look for vendors that have an amazing fit and that pay particular attention to fit. Customer reviews help us also determine if we should reorder a product or not. We will not reorder a product with negative reviews, and negative reviews left by customers really come down to the quality of the garment. They come down to bad fit, we're going to get a bad review. Bad quality of fabric, bad sewing construction also helps with bad reviews. So these are the type of things that we look for, and these are the type of attributes that we kind of look for when we're looking for new vendors. Is are they going to pay attention to fit and to quality? You know, we have. On an annual basis, we're at the hundreds of millions of dollars in wholesale goods, but we don't produce anything ourselves. So we rely on our factories and we rely on our vendors for our success. So we have long-term vendor relationships. We've worked with many of our vendors for over 20 years. A lot of these people, we had babies at the same time, and now all of our kids are in college. So I totally think that Lulu's success is really down to a strong partnership with our vendors. We worked with over 400 vendors. We've built our brand using vendors from all over the world. But as other speakers have mentioned, you know, a lot of our goods are made in China. The coronavirus has really made us realize that we need to make a concentrated effort to reduce our reliance on Chinese-made goods. And we're actively looking at new countries and new partnerships. And we were hurt terribly when China shut down. Basically, it turned into kind of a panic. And we're still recuperating, but doing a lot better. I wanted to give everybody an idea of what we look for in a new vendor because we need, you know, certain things that need to happen right away. And we start with tests with the vendor as well. We want to make sure that a vendor is able to sample correctly. We want to make sure that a vendor can pass our fit inspection, that they deliver on time, that the goods pass, QA and QC. We want to make sure that a vendor can follow our procedures and our product guidelines. You know, can they barcode? Can they pack and ship according to our vendor manual? We ask for an accessible sales rep that gets back to us with questions and ideas and all of that. As you know, we have this millennial and these Gen Z consumers, and they are conscious consumers. You know, retail has really changed a lot in the last 5 years. And so we are really looking for vendor partners who manufacture using ethical and fair labor practices. This is something that's extremely important to Lulu's. The fashion industry is also witnessing a shift in consumer preference towards environment-friendly apparel. And there's a trend in sustainable fashion. So we're looking with vendors who are, you know, they're starting to think about these things, and they share a lot of these same, you know, ideals as we do. So that's something that we're starting to look for more and more. We also like a quick factory profile when starting a new relationship. And this can include, you know, the factory volume and capacity per year, vendor expertise, what are the main categories that the vendor specializes in. A vendor's financial status is important to us. So a snapshot of financial status is important. A social audit is also important to us. We like to know a vendor's preferred payment terms. We also like to know a vendor's shipping source. I mean, we heard about logistical problems, which are turning into a little bit of a nightmare for everyone. And factory minimums. You know, I talked about how we like to work with low minimums in the beginning, but, you know, we do adhere to a factory's minimums wherever we can. And luckily we're at the scale that usually we can meet the minimums without a problem, but we need to know the per style and the per color up front. We also like to know average lead times on approved designs. And we look for quality craftsmanship, like I mentioned. So if we can see an existing line sheet, but also even better than that, really looking at previously shipped merchandise styles that were production quality, because sometimes you have a TOP sample that isn't always production quality. We like to look at development samples as well, and we specifically look for samples where we can look at sewing capabilities and fabric capabilities. We love a vendor that has a library of fabric swatches. If that's possible, that's always very helpful. We ask that when a vendor is making something for Lulu's, it is absolutely exclusive to us and will not be sold to any other apparel company. And we need to work with vendors that we know we can trust. And that trust really establishes long-term relationships, and that's what we're looking for. So I think just to kind of summarize everything, we look for a vendor that has the ability to source good fabric, quick turnaround of samples. We look for short lead times. If there's any time that we can get, a second or third run within a season, that just is amazing for us. We look for consistent fit and quality. So all of these make a really good relationship. And I think that a lot of the things that I've mentioned today are very similar to what other American companies are looking for as well. So I hope what I covered has been helpful. I'm willing to answer, any questions that you may have. So thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Madam Colleen. You have given us a lot of information, and thank you for appreciating this Textile exhibition. We are happy that you found it useful. So I'll request my panelists to bear with us because we, the trade division, has put up 2 presentations. One has to be delivered by me and one by my colleague. This is for the Pakistani audience, definitely, and we would like to share whatever information or intelligence we have gathered at what is happening over here on the larger scale. So I would like to share a small presentation for the Pakistani audience. I'm sharing my screen, and I am sure everybody can see this thing. So the topic of my presentation, or the Consulate Journal of Pakistan, Los Angeles presentation for the Pakistani audience during Texpo, is the rising e-commerce in USA during COVID-19 and opportunities and direct to consumer. I'll be very brief and to the point. As Ms. Sara and definitely Madam Colleen has also mentioned about the rising e-commerce in America as people are staying at home and ordering online, as I'll share the data with Pakistani companies to this business in America if they want to capture more share in this textile and apparel business, as Pakistan is one of the largest supplier exporter of these commodities, textile and apparel, to the USA. Just to give you the perspective to my panelists also, America is the largest export destination of Pakistan, and 80% of our total export consists of chapter 61, 62, 63, which are textile, apparel, clothing, and home textile. So in this background, what COVID-19 has impacted on the psychology of the US consumer. So this COVID-19 has accelerated the major shift in retail stores, as many of the traditional brick and mortar stores have closed down. The online credit has been increasing. The people are buying online credit, as this chart shows. This one, if you can see the arrow, the online trend is going up as a weekly card transaction. And this online store is April, May, then you can see there's a constant decline in the in-store apparel, in-store visit to the textile or apparel stores here. And then e-commerce sales in the Q4 rose by 45% as compared with the same period in 2019, and they now make up 16% of all US retail sales, as the other charts will show. This is the US Census Bureau data, the most authentic and official one, and the most latest one. As you can see, the retail e-commerce sales as percent of total quarterly. This is a quarterly wise data, and you can see the constant rise in the e-commerce sales in America. So this is the uncharted territory where Pakistani companies have to venture into. So this slide shows that the big retailers like JCPenney, Neiman Marcus Groups, and Brook Brothers have filed for bankruptcy, and they are, for the restructuring purposes, they are doing adopting different business model. And since April 2020, some 5,000 stores in USA were closed and 680s were open. This bar chart will show you the details of these opening and closing of the stores. Mostly are closing, as you can see the bottom bars, which shows the closing of stores here in the USA. And this is another very important chart which I gathered from the digital commerce website, and this is a very important chart which shows this steep rise in the e-commerce sales versus the total retail sales of the year-over-year growth. This orange one, you can see that people or consumers in USA are more prone to go online for their shopping in the apparel, especially in the textile and apparel sector. This also chart shows the $861 billion worth of sales were made online. $861 billion. The total market size of USA retail sales is $4 trillion. And $861 billion is going or is being happening through e-commerce channels or multi-channels. I'll show you. the major e-commerce retailers in USA. Everybody knows about Amazon. Then Walmart is coming up. They are competing. They are giving tough competition to Amazon. But currently, Amazon is the leader in the e-commerce sales in America. And the Q4 of 2020, the last quarter, which is also called holiday quarter, Amazon made a sale of whopping 125 billion US dollars in America. So this is the most important aspect for the Pakistani companies, because I would only mention that we are also having a pilot project of Amazon. We would like to have the third-party seller program for Pakistani companies so they can sell directly to the American consumers. And this chart, also taken from the digital commerce website, gives you the market size or the market share of the big giant companies in America. Amazon is number one, then Walmart is coming up. You can see the 2021 ranked Walmart, because many of the Pakistani companies are supplying to Walmart also. And Walmart is also coming up with their own marketplace. So these are the things which we have to focus on, especially the Pakistani companies. So what is the 3P third-party seller? For example, if the company is based in Pakistan, they can register on their website, seller registration program on Amazon or on Walmart, and then they can, after going through the process of approvals, they can create their listings and they can start selling their products. So there are different phenomenon in e-commerce about the logistics, supply chain management, the fulfillment by Amazon or fulfillment by a merchant. And to cover these things, we will soon have a separate webinar on e-commerce with TDAP, so we can discuss more in detail with it. So I'll not take much of the time here in this webinar on this particular subject. So brand is the most important thing. For example, the Pakistani companies have to come up with their own brands, so they can get good market capture. They can get the good customer support, as Madam Colleen has also mentioned in her talk. So there are certain fee structure if you sell in Amazon, which is a giant here. For example, if you're professional sellers, the monthly fee is $40 per month to maintain your account. And then on every individual selling class, there are average cost of 99 cents for each item sold. Then there is a separate detailed categories of how items are sold, what are the percentage on apparel sector, which we will share later on in our separate webinar. Then there is a shipping fee and FBA fee. If you opt for the fulfillment by Amazon, then you have to pay more fee. It is more cost effective, more effective for the supply chain and for the delivery of your product. So to come on the e-commerce, you have to check about your company, that whether you are digital shelf presence readiness. Are you ready for your presenting your products on a digital level? You have to come up with these certain things. For example, the description of your product, the proper images and videos in the white background, the customers' reviews, as Madam Colleen has also mentioned about her companies. Lulu's, and the inventory you are having, then the defect orders you have to mention, then the enhanced content of your product on these channels. Then if you want to venture into this, you need to have a 1 or 2 persons dealing in your e-commerce sector, in your company's e-commerce department. You have a dedicated team, as just mentioned, that you have a customer representative who can deal with the queries or issues being raised by these companies. So these are the things which I'm sure require more attention and more discussions. But just to give you an idea that America is more going towards the omni-channel or e-commerce channels. So I'll stop here and I will invite my colleague, Mr. Abraham. He's our marketing officer. Abraham, please, you start with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me just share the presentation first. Can everybody see the presentation? If they can confirm me, please.
Yes, we can see, Brian. Please continue.
Okay. So hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Abraham. I'm a marketing officer here in the Consulate General of Pakistan, Los Angeles. And today I would like to give you a short presentation about some general insights regarding consumer trends here in the United States. specifically to apparel and e-commerce. I believe our commercial counsel has already given excellent insights about e-commerce, and I will be taking it from here for the apparel sector. So these are the contents we will be focusing on today. I will not be touching on data a lot. I believe our commercial counsel has already done a pretty good job on that. So I shall skip this and directly go to the e-commerce shift. So overall, the e-commerce industry was, of course, already seeing extensive growth in the pre-pandemic times, but after broad research, it is concluded that the pandemic actually surged the industry, and it caused a major shift, and I believe by now we are all very accustomed to this new era. However, what's more noteworthy is that even the most hesitant consumer is making a shift as well. And I'm talking about the consumer who would have never considered shopping outside the brick and mortar stores for their apparel consumption. Another important factor to note is that the consumer is becoming more aware about online shopping experiences and how it can save them money by getting a better deal compared to traditional stores. The fourth point I mentioned is incentive. What this means is that the average consumer in the US rely heavily on rolling credit for their shopping and their respective banks through their whatever cards they use now provide many incentives to shop online, such as extra cash back or statement credits. For example, Amazon offers its customers an option to use one of the specific cards to redeem a $10 gift card if they spend a certain amount. Moving on to the pre-pandemic consumer behavior. The consumer behavior was actually very different before the pandemic when it comes to apparel. According to the preferred going in store for their apparel shopping needs. And the major factor for this was the correct sizing, as they like the fact that they could try before buying. And I've heard that many times, especially in departmental stores like Macy's, Nordstrom, and Bloomingdale's. Material and durability of the fabric are another factor, and I believe this was also mentioned by Sarah and Colleen. Um, uh, and another factor that consumers were hesitant to buy online for this was intangibility. Uh, Lastly, less hassle is another factor, as they would know right and then whether they like the product or not. So this is the current consumer behavior in the market. Like I mentioned before, the pandemic actually caused a major shift for e-commerce. And what is more surprising is that the very same hesitant consumer now prefer buying their apparel products online. It's like their opinion about brick and mortar stores changed dramatically. Of course, even this is led by many factors, and the number one is the convenience of buying online. Most of these consumers simply buy these products on their smartphones. I mean, because it's easy, you're sitting on your couch and you can, purchase whatever you want. And there's no denying that they can find much more variety than brick and mortar stores while filtering out the products that they need and they don't. I mentioned this before as well, that consumers are becoming much more aware about discounts, deals, and incentives. And these are also some of the main factors why these consumers now prefer e-commerce platforms. Lastly, and obviously, it's simply time efficient, as they do not actually have to physically go to another location to get what they need, and they can literally buy whatever they want in just one place. The platforms. So I think everybody knows Amazon is probably the number one choice for most of these individuals. And this is mainly due to the Amazon's recent service called Amazon Wardrobe, which allows these consumers to try their apparel products for 7 days, and then they can decide which ones to keep and which ones to send back. On the other hand, while this is the major platform for these consumers to buy their clothing from, the second best alternative still remains the e-commerce platforms of those respective departmental stores, Macy's, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, and many others. And of course, the e-commerce platforms of the brands themselves, like Lulu's, Cole Haan's, and Banana Republic, because they already have established online shopping platforms now. Another interesting finds that I personally found was that Shopify stores are also on the rise. And this has mainly been done through social media apps like Instagram, where people are seeing more relative ads and are being introduced to different brands created on Shopify. And a lot of people are being introduced on that, and people just click on it, they find a new brand. And I don't want to go into the details how Shopify actually works, but this is something new that I've been seeing in the last year. So that will be all from my side today. Thank you for all your time, and I will pass it on to our commercial counselor out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ibrahim, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all our respectable panelists. Now, Mr. Asad from TDAP, can you open the floor for questions from the participants from Pakistan, so our panelists could respond to that? Asad?
Yes, sir. Floor is open for question and answer sessions. Everyone can ask questions. Yes.
So I would request the respectable participants from Pakistan. So first, if they can introduce themselves, their name and the company name, and if they want to ask a particular panelist to respond, or they could ask a general question, that anybody could respond to that. So yes, Asad, please see who is there to ask.
Sir, I think no questions, sir.
No questions. People are sleeping in Pakistan. It must be 10 p.m. night time.
Yes, sir. Yes, it's 10 p.m. sir.
Okay, no question. Then I would request then Mr. Basit Rauf, who's the Director General of Texpo, who has done a wonderful job. Mr. Basit and his team in putting up this virtual trade exhibition for the first time in the history of TDAP in Pakistan. So I would request Mr. Basit Rauf to give some concluding remarks, so they can wrap things up here in Los Angeles, because all our panelists have to do a lot of work here in LA. So Basit sir, please sir, for your
Yes, I'm audible.
yes sir.
Thank you so much. And it's a really wonderful webinar. Especially, I think our exporters have been get the useful information about the e-commerce, how the e-commerce is going in America. And Mr. Colleen, Miss Colleen has given very wonderful information how the vendors can develop the business with the American companies. And the basic reason of this webinar was to interact with to create a interaction between the exporters of apparel and garments and home textiles and with the US buyers. And I think our commercial section in Los Angeles has done a wonderful job in organizing this webinar and creating a connection between the buyers and the exporters of both sides. And I hope this webinar will give a future course of action, so that the business can be increased with this. And I hope the visitors from the America or the buyers from the America have definitely visited our this Texpo, the first virtual textile exhibition. The basic reason was that was the pandemic, that our export has not been able to go to the America and other European countries to have the business in the textile sector. So the TDAP was thinking that almost a year has passed, and there should be some effort to connect our exporters with international buyers, and holding these webinars also one of the reasons that our exporters get useful information. So I really appreciate Mr. Atif and the Consul General and your team that they have organized this webinar. With this, I am really grateful to you, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Basit sir. We are here to help our Pakistanis companies. I am especially thankful to our respectable panelists, Mr. Robert Krieger, Madam Colleen Winter, Ms. Sarah Mayberg, and Mr. Sikandar Rashid, who find time to this webinar and share their experiences with us. And we will definitely continue to seek their guidance if we receive any sort of query from Pakistan. So thank you to all of you for joining for this webinar, and we are grateful to you, madam. So thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.